The British regulator has issued a warning about the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine after 2 nurses given the jab suffered allergic reactions. The NHS staff members are reported to have had anaphylaxis shortly after the shot and are now recovering. UK authorities are now warning anyone with a history of significant allergic reactions not to have the jab. For more on this, answering our COVID questions, Chris Moy, the AMA Vice President and a practising GP. We had huge trials, so did they not pick this up? Is this a new reaction? What are your thoughts on what we know so far about this?
Oh, look, I don't think this changes anything materially. Pretty much, essentially anaphylaxis or anaphylactoid reaction is essentially a very severe allergic reaction where you can get a severe rash, swelling of the mouth, lips, and drop in blood pressure and short of breath. Now, the thing is that we're looking at 2 people who already had a history of these sort of reactions, who actually carried around adrenaline, as my understanding. And we're talking 2 people in amongst tens of thousands of people so far. Now, if you look at it across the world, I mean, pretty much there's always going to be a small proportion of people who are going to be allergic, even to the point of anaphylaxis, to any food or any medicine or any natural therapy even. So, I mean, this is not totally unpredicted. What I'd say is at the moment we'll still just keep a close eye on this. In some ways it shows that the vaccine is doing its job, and probably the other thing is it reinforces the fact that these vaccines will need to be done under medical supervision in a clinic such as this. So we've got things like the adrenaline ready to go and the oxygen and things like that that's available to provide to the patient if they have reaction. But look, I think nobody should be too worried about this. Just to give you the odds, I mean, the odds we're looking at the moment is 2 people out of tens of thousands of people, I think 40-odd thousand or 50,000 people. The lifetime risk of getting hit by lightning is about 1 in 12,000. So, we've got to get a perspective on this number.
Sounds like a very high risk to be hit by lightning. That aside, so what you're saying on the reaction is this type of allergic reaction does happen with vaccines. It's very rare. And in terms of someone's health, as long as they're there in a health setting, they have the adrenaline you mentioned there, there's no real risk of anything more untoward than a pretty nasty shock and then moving on with your life.
Yeah, it doesn't produce any permanent damage, and that's probably the main thing. I mean, it's an acute allergic reaction. I mean, the same people, similar things happen when people eat, seafood, if they're allergic to seafood and that sort of thing. So it's that sort of short-term reaction. It's something that can be treated and must be treated very quickly. Obviously, in the very rare cases it's happened, again, it's a very rare occurrence. The thing is that it's not material in terms of long-term consequences for that individual. And they've done the right thing, which is saying a warning that people have had severe reactions and are carrying on and are probably not the best candidates. Because one of the things that the mechanism of action of this vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, is that it actually is there to produce a reaction, to stimulate your immune system. And in some ways, this is an overreaction of your immune system. And it just tells you that it probably is working. And one of the side effects of this vaccine that's well known is that it does produce a very sore arm, and because of the fact that it's trying to stimulate that immune system to then produce the antibodies to fight COVID if ever you get exposed to that in the future.
I want to ask about the other thing we're going to learn out of UK, priority groups. I don't think we're getting surprising approaches from the UK, but what can we learn about this and for Australia as well?
Well, I think it's quite interesting and logical, the sort of thinking that's come out. So they've had an independent authority go through the thinking about this vaccine. So essentially, the vaccine can do one of 2 things. Number one, can protect you as an individual. And also the idea is that hopefully it can protect transmission, particularly through the community, so it doesn't spread. But what is known at the moment is that this vaccine, we've got lots of evidence that it can protect you getting sick, but it's unclear whether you can still catch the virus and then pass it on, but also whether if we can get a large proportion of the population, and you would need a very large proportion of the population vaccinated to produce a herd immunity, whether you can actually stop it transmitting. So really the to get the biggest medical benefit or bang for buck for this vaccine, what they're going to do, which is common sense, is really protect the people at the highest risk, which are those who are in older age groups, particularly in aged care facilities. So the first target is aged care facilities, both the residents and the staff, the individuals living there and the staff. And also what they'll be doing is then obviously frontline health workers and those with vulnerable conditions, except for those with maybe severe immune deficiency. And then after that, then they'll go down by age. So there will be basically an order of battle in terms of how this is rolled out. And Australia's probably going to learn from this, although we are in a slightly different position because we don't have the cases. There they have to go through this order of battle, and it's extremely logical in the thinking that they've gone through.
All right, and just finally, I want to put your hat on maybe as a proud South Australian. We've got Mark McGowan not coming to National Cabinet, the WA Premier. He doesn't want to be in the same room, we're hearing, as the South Australian Premier. Apart from anything else, the Premier, I'm sure, is taking precautions. That is Stephen Marshall. No cases anywhere in South Australia recorded for 11 days. From my point of view, this seems paranoia, and it's going to make other people in WA, paranoid. Is this going too far? Is this a good idea? What are your thoughts?
I think certainly, in Western Australia, they've taken a really extreme approach to managing this, and that's really because they didn't want it at all in the community or take any risk at all. South Australia's taken a more sort of a balanced risk approach, which really it's not been a scorched earth approach basically to this. Now, obviously, I think that the risk would be extremely small of our Premier passing it on to the Western Australian Premier, but obviously it would look really bad if he did happen to have it and pass it on. I would understand the risk of that. But look, I mean, my own view is that the risk would be extremely low. And, you do have to balance the risk versus what you're trying to do. And medicine's always about that. And but look, I kind of get it, but yeah, it is pretty extreme.
Look, I know you have to be a little bit sensitive on politics, so I think I get what you're saying. Dr. Chris Moy, thank you for your time.
Sure.